Hi again, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Capitol Talk with RV Business. I'm Rick Kessler. Joining me, as always, is Sherm Goldenberg. And with us today is Frank Tamburrini, General Manager of IDS. Frank, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We look forward to talking to you about a whole bunch of different things. But let's start off with IDS. It's a dealer management software provider. Astra is the name of your particular DMS product. And it's been around, 37 years or so?
That's right.
And last time I checked, you had about 12,000 users and 7,000 mobile users, which just speaks to the tremendous growth and maybe sophistication of the RV industry.
For sure. I think we've seen a lot of growth in the last little while, especially in our mobile. More people are using the application in the mobile version. One of the benefits about being in business so long is, it's one of those things that's nice to say, but really what it really means is, and what we say internally is, we've got 30 plus years of deep core RV logic built into the application. That type of thing is very difficult to just whip up and with something new. Sometimes you need to go through all those iterations to really go deep into the industry.
And it's not just the RV industry, by the way, everyone. It's also marine. It's also the cargo trailers. So you guys are spread across a lot of these adjacent markets that we hear so much about.
That's right.
One of the things that we definitely wanted to ask you about, we're sitting here talking to you on Tuesday, November 2, and beginning next week is the RVDA, the National RV Dealers Convention Expo out in Las Vegas. It's, for many of us, the first time we're going to see each other in person in at least a couple of years, if not longer than that. I don't know. Mm-hmm. And Frank, you have actually you're going to be presenting one of the seminars at one of the workshops there at the Con Expo. Can you offer us a little preview?
Sure. I was very excited to see the topics that the RVDA wanted presenters, and the one that really appealed to me was customer service versus the customer experience. What's the difference and why you should care? And back in the day, I was lucky enough to get a lot of customer service training, and it's really a lot of tactics. How do you diffuse a situation when it's a come up? But customer experience is really more proactive to see how do you actually close those gaps or those problems before they even start. Now, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, that was called, how do you not get customers to yell at you? Now they've rebranded it to customer experience, and we got a whole program around it. But at the end of the day, it's really, how do you proactively avoid getting yelled at by customers and giving them a really great experience? So I'm going to be going through and talk of some tactics, and then give them a lean Six Sigma process to evaluate their entire process and find those gaps and give them some suggestions on how to solve some of them.
Nice. Thank you. Sherm?
Well, as part of this presentation, will you be leaning on your recent trends report in any way, shape, or form?
Absolutely. So in the trends report, there are some examples that we're seeing dealers are using to increase their rect. Now, the thing with rect, there's a lot of discussion around it, and there's a lot of macro issues that are happening that are very difficult to solve. Supply chain issues.
Let me insert here real quick,
Sure.
Just because it's a journalist thing and we have to do this. RECT is repair event cycle time. Proceed.
Great.
And I should add, pardon me, Frank, that it's something that was getting legs, was getting speed before the pandemic. It was a kind of an industry-wide
That's right.
priority, and lost some ground, like a lot of things in the pandemic, right?
Well, especially when sales are going through the roof, sometimes you lose focus on productivity and efficiency because you're just trying to get through the day. And so what we're went through is, you can talk about supply chain issues, inventory issues, but really there's nothing you can do about it. So instead of focusing on those things, focus on the things you have control over. And one of the principles of lean is essentially you lean out a process. So if you do 1,000 work orders a year, if you're able to shave off even, I don't know, 15 minutes, 30 minutes per work order, that all adds up. That gives your service team a little bit more time to breathe, allows them to be a little bit more proactive. So in the session, we talk about some tools that were important before the pandemic, but are even more important now, like digital signatures, and why having a customer drive all the way back into the dealership to pay for something, when in today's day and age, you're ordering Ubers on your phone, you're ordering food on your phone, Amazon, you put in an order and all of a sudden, maybe not 15 minutes later, but 24 hours later, it shows up at your front door. So I think the dealers are starting to introduce some of these newer tool sets that will help their service teams be more productive, and it gives them the time to do those nice to have things when you have more time.
Frank, I remember back when Rect first became a known commodity that we were going to track, IDS was one of, if not the first DMS providers that was tasked with creating a component in Astra to
That's right.
monitor that. How has that been going? Do you guys keep like as annual statistics for, amongst your dealers who use that?
We do, and it's going very well. We're tracking that data, and we're trying to provide as much insight back into the industry so that they can, do something about it. A lot of the data is aggregate, so you can't necessarily see the details. But what we're doing is we're working with individual dealers to now drill into some of those areas where they can actually focus on. So one example that I heard recently with a customer is they did a deeper analysis into their own data, and we helped them, and they realized that with one particular supplier, the work orders with that supplier were typically a little longer, maybe more than a little. And so they made some adjustments, and that actually helped it. Now that's not going to solve, that's not the silver bullet, that's not going to solve all their issues, but we're trying to preach that, find one problem, big or small, and try focusing on solving that, then move on to the next one. I think as sometimes we get overwhelmed when there's so many things you need to fix. Where do I start? Our opinion is, pick one and just focus and drive it to the ground until it's done.
Remember early on, one of the results of tracking Rect was, and I'm not going to get this completely accurate, but if the part that was needed was in stock, it was X amount of weeks. If it was not in stock, it was almost X amount of months. And even that was affected whether it was a warranty or a non-warranty situation as well.
That's right. Absolutely. Those are big, very big factors. And I think, pre-supply shortages, you could probably identify maybe those parts that you use on a regular basis that take a very long time to get in. And you probably could have been a little bit more proactive and maybe ordered a bunch of them and have them sitting there. But now with things so tight, it's a bit of a challenge to do those things.
Yeah. Thank you, pandemic.
Yeah, once again, if you've got one message to the people that listen to you at the Con Expo more than any other, Frank, what next week? What is it?
So I think the biggest thing is kind of what we touched on, is there's a lot of things that we can be talking about, but really focus on the ones that you can control. And the things that you can control are your people, your processes, your procedures, and your operations. And there's a lot of data around, and to help you, the real thing is finding those quick wins. Start with the quick ones, solve it, and then move on to the next one.
Rick?
You know what, with that, I think we ought to end this episode on that note. That was a good note to end on. Frank, thank you again for your time. Looking forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you for having me. See you down there.
Take care, man.